wake up in the middle of the night, should have needed to do, or
What
Not
do they
live
have
study
to do?
sessions.
It's like, wait, yes,
Will
it
be.
is.
And then there's some people calling about, talk to the people at the school.
Getting, reaching out to the.
I think the other one's a separate one.
Somebody at Wilson and Payville, hot water.
Zach, how you doing? Sorry, I acknowledge you. How you doing, sir?
They're doing the tie-in.
Long time no see.
Yep.
Funny how things kind of cycle around, isn't it?
you can't get far away from Lincoln Park.
Oh, you don't get far away from Lincoln Park.
Something always sucks you back in.
Keep that in
I
mind.
always thought about the high school.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that a
You're-
threat or?
I'm sure your name
Pretty
will be
much.
mentioned many, many
much.
Yeah.
times over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have we mentioned?
Your
Your ears will burn a lot, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Your ears will be burning a lot.
Oh, undoubtedly, undoubtedly.
Because now everything's your fault.
Yeah, I got the door and everything was just.
October 5th, yeah.
And anything from that day forward is Matt's fault.
Do it early so you get a little heat before you leave.
Matt made us do that.
October 5th.
Matt, when has that changed since you've been here?
I didn't want to point that out, but.
I will.
You guys are, you run the.
The buck
Mayor and
stops,
council.
the buck
city
stops
manager.
here, I think is what he used to
I think
say.
city clerk is somewhere up there as well.
No, heck, no, I'm not even on that page.
Man, we got
Not
to
even on that
Can't
page.
find mine.
start bringing that number up.
We are at that time. Call the special meeting for interim city manager interviews to order at 6:30. I think we're on time. So if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Kara, if we can have roll call, please.
Councilpersons Breeding,
Present.
Higgins,
Present.
Kelsey,
You hear?
Parkinson,
Yes.
Ross. Here. Salcido,
Present.
and Mayor Carnes.
Here. Well, good evening, everyone. Purpose of this meeting is that the person to my right is given notice that he is leaving us. Matter of fact, this will be his last scheduled set of meetings for city manager. And we have folks that have expressed an interest, or a person that has expressed an interest. And it's our purpose tonight to conduct an interview for that. So first, I'm going to turn it over to our current city manager, Mr. Kopler.
Thank you. Just as a little bit of background, as mayor and council is aware, I was recommending that you sit down and speak with John Zeck. You know, I think he meets or checks all the boxes when you're looking for an interim manager that, you know, need to be checked. Definitely has a lot of experience related to economic development, which is a very big thing right now for us, as well as many, many, many years, we won't say how many years of experience as a city manager in different communities. And some of those days were spent here in the Downriver. And on another part of his life, he was on the RTAB for us. So he has a pretty good understanding of the city of Lincoln Park as well. I think if it would be okay, we kind of have two things really to talk about tonight. One is, you know, you talking with John here to make sure that he's the right person for you. And then the second thing is talk about some of the items that came up about the contract we proposed. To let you know that, again, when I drafted that, I had not spoken with John, and it was only after I drafted it that John had seen it. I did talk a little bit about parameters. So I think there's room, as we were talking earlier tonight, about, you know, making some changes if we need to. So if we could, I guess we'll bring John up to
Yes.
the podium there, and he is ready to talk.
John, what I would suggest is to give us a little, I know the Matt has done a little bit about your background, but if you could just go through your work experience and,
I'd be glad to, Mayor.
there you go.
Okay. I came back to the state of Michigan in late 1978. I had gone off, left the state for a while to go to grad school in public administration. I returned in late 1978, went to work for the city of Plymouth as the assistant to the city manager, and was there for a short while. I moved over to work for the city of Wayne in late 1979, and I spent 31 years there. Initially, I was community development director, DDA director, city planner, handled the block grant program, handled writing all the grants for the city, was very involved in all the capital projects in the community. That prompted the city manager to make me his assistant. I was the assistant manager in addition to handling all those subjects. And then when he retired in 1992, I took over as manager and served in that capacity for 18 years. I tried retirement, but I missed working, and I went back to work as the interim manager of Ellen Park for a time to try to help them in the time when they were having some very, very, very serious financial issues. Ultimately, as you know, they ended up in bankruptcy, and the state took over, and I went back to being retired. And then I was invited to leave the public sector, and I joined a company in Wayne that I had worked with worked with them for a number of years, encouraging them to expand in Wayne. There was a point in time when they were thinking of leaving Wayne because they felt landlocked and they needed more space. And this company reached out to me in 2012 and asked me if I'd come to work for them as a consultant, and that was American Jetway Corporation. It's listed in my resume. And I spent 3 years there working as a consultant. I was not full-time. There were weeks when I worked full-time, and there were weeks when I worked part-time, but I was involved with, they acquired 2 buildings in addition to the 1 building that they had in Wayne. And the 1 building that they acquired was like 3 times, 4 times the size of their original building. And it needed to be updated. They were involved with butane, isobutane. They were in the aerosol can business. I had nothing to do with production, but they needed some very sophisticated plans drawn up that had to go to the state fire marshal and the Wayne County folks and the city of Wayne fire marshals and all that kind of thing to get building permits and inspections. And I worked with them for 3 years, and then I tried retirement again. And then Mayor Joseph Cuspa of Southgate in 2017 asked me if I would, actually it was 2016, I'll correct myself. 2016 asked me if I would come out of retirement and spend some time with him in Southgate as the city manager, and I did that for 18 months. And during that time, he was very gracious. I had already been appointed by Governor Snyder to serve on the Lincoln Park RTAB in January of 2016. I went to work for Mayor Cuspa in July of 16, and I asked him, you know, if it'd be okay with him if I continue to serve on the RTAB, which he was very accommodating and gracious about it, and wanted Lincoln Park to do well. He's a hometown Southgate fellow, and he Southgate and Lincoln Park share a border, and he said, sure, help them out. And so I served on the RTAB board here. We completed our work in July of 17, and was very glad to recommend to the governor and the state treasurer that the affairs of Lincoln Park be returned to the mayor and council and city manager and the people that were elected or appointed to make those important decisions. I got a chance to meet Lisa and the police chief, fire chief, and the department heads in that period of time. I had a presentation one day from both of the district judges, came to the RTAB meeting and made a real fine presentation about the needs of the court, and the police and fire chiefs made it real clear as to what their needs were. And so I enjoyed working on the RTAB. I concluded my work with Southgate in February of last year, and I was enjoying retirement again until I was called and asked if I would consider coming and helping Lincoln Park as the interim manager, help you and the person you select to lead the search for Matt's successor. And I got permission from my wife to do it. And so I'm here in front of you tonight, ready to answer any and all of your questions.
What size is the city of Wayne?
6 square miles. When I got there, it was about 20,000 people. It's diminished somewhat in terms of population. It's in the 18,000 person range. Again, I retired in December of 10, and here we are almost 9 years later. And I lived in Wayne up until last fall, and my wife and I decided it was time to downsize, and we sold our home and bought a condominium and actually moved next door to Canton Township and all, but still attend church in Wayne, and our 2 sons attended Wayne St. Mary's School. I'm on the finance committee for Wayne St. Mary's Church, and actually worked with your former Catholic pastor here, and he came over and spent some time at St. Mary's in Wayne, and now he's, I believe he is Father Jerry Couple. I believe he's in down near Milan or something in a parish down there. So, but I have many ties yet to Wayne, but we have relocated to a condominium, and I don't have any grass to cut anymore, and snow to shovel, and leaves to rake, and I'm getting used to condominium living.
Just curious how you were selected by the governor to be on the RTAB.
Yes, sir.
How did that come about?
Well, the governor and the treasurer at the time, I believe, was Mr. Dillon. Andy Dillon was the treasurer at the time. They were looking for a variety of men and women that could serve on RTABs. And a friend of mine, actually, a fellow city manager that I've known since college, was on the RTAB in Allen Park. And a fellow that used to work with me, and I retired, Peter McInerney, had been the development director in Wyandotte. I lured him away to come to Wayne. We worked together for 10 years, and I had retired from Wayne. He was still working part-time for Wayne, and he was serving on the Highland Park or Hamtramck RTAB. I can't recall right now. I think it was Hamtramck. And both of these friends said, "John, you're enjoying retirement too much. You should volunteer, because it's a volunteer position. There's no pay. You should volunteer and let the governor know you'd be willing to serve on an RTAB." And so I did. And I submitted my credentials, resume to the state treasurer. One of the key people in the treasurer's office at the time was the retired city manager of Ypsilanti, Ed Carisno. And when Ed saw the resume, I guess he spoke to some people and said, "I know the guy, he's all right." And I got a letter from the governor saying, "We'd like to appoint you." And so I was appointed, and I showed up here in January of 16 for the swearing in and the first meeting, and it was a real pleasure to serve on it.
Well, we appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
From there, I'll open it up to questions, comments for Mr. Zach.
Well, I'll go first, I guess, through the chair.
Sure.
I like your credentials. I think that's, you're very diversified, if I can use that word. And this city has a lot of ongoing issues that really require a lot of frontline attention because of all the different things, and I'm sure you know some of the history. And we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of stuff. We're doing a lot of road construction. We're bringing a recycling program in here pretty soon that's coming in. We have an issue with putting a new water main, a major water main in. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff going on besides the daily issues that we have. And, looking at and I guess I'll go right to the contract because I guess the best way to cut to the chase is that I don't have any problem. I wasn't here last council meeting, but I watched the council meeting, so
Okay.
I'm familiar. I had to qualify that I wasn't here, but I did watch it. Anyways, where I'm getting at is that the only question I have is about the car allowance. And it's the only question I got. I don't know if usually what happens where I come from the private sector, you got paid per mileage and and that was kind of because some days you go a lot, some days you didn't go a lot.
Right.
And a lot of the work that I'm aware of, and I'm not here 8 hours a day, is within the city confines here, and some are obviously the DUA and stuff like that. So that's the only hang-up I got is that whether than paying the flat-out 300, I don't know if it would, and I'm just throwing that out because, it's a council decision, but I'm looking at the fact maybe paying a mileage thing and see how that works out, because the way that I understand it, it's going to be about 16 weeks before we get a full-time manager. So it's about 4 months we're talking that you're going to be here in one capacity, the other, either
Sure.
30
If-
hours. I'm sorry.
If I may, just, that's the second part
Oh,
of what we're
okay.
going to be
Then
doing.
I'm all done.
We need to ascertain first if John is going to be our candidate, and then we can
Okay.
iron out the details of the contract. Is that?
Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now is
Yeah,
just whether or not
getting
he's
to
the
know
only.
him, if he's,
Okay.
questions on how he would handle some
I
things,
guess
I
I
guess.
have a question then.
Okay.
Yes,
Hi,
Hi.
nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, too. In your former life, you were the clerk, so
Yes.
we were looking at your budget
retired.
in your former life there.
Yes, yes.
But didn't stay retired.
Yeah, didn't stay retired,
Didn't stick.
you understand.
It takes
and I-
training to be retired, and I'm still in training.
There you go, there you go. It's not as much as it's cracked up to be. Anyways, I appreciate you coming forward and at least offering to come and help us out during this interim time. I'm just curious, did they give you a copy of the job description for the city manager, the one that mayor and council had adopted before that outlined all of the responsibilities and what you would be expected to do?
Matt went through all the responsibilities and the things that would need to be covered. It wasn't anything that I hadn't experienced before. But to say that did I get a paper version of the job description, I did not.
We'll have to make sure, if we vote on this,
Okay.
that you get a copy of that job description. And again, there are some items in it that really do not pertain any longer or whatever. So
Right.
that may be something that we would have to address. But I just want to also clarify and make sure, because other cities operate different than we do, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you work under the direction of the mayor and council.
Sure.
It's not a city manager form of government. And so therefore, it kind of puts you at a disadvantage because there are many things that need to come first to mayor and council to make sure that they agree with it, policies, so forth and so on. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew our form of government
Right.
and you were aware of how it.
I did experience that in Allen Park as well as in Southgate. The charters, I'm a person that loves to read the charter, and I spoke to Matt about I would like a copy of the charter. I'd like a copy of the zoning ordinance and obviously the budget and those kinds of documents if I'm selected. But the city manager functioned a little differently in Plymouth than it did from Wayne, than it does in Allen Park and Southgate. So so the way it works here, I'm perfectly comfortable with it, and I saw that firsthand when I was working for Southgate, how that worked there, and I had no difficulty with it at all.
That's all the questions I have for that.
Yes, sir.
Hi. You're only interested in part-time right now, is that,
Yes,
what
sir.
I understand?
Yes, sir. I would like to, I'll do the job. I have great confidence in the department heads that I know that work here, As I said, I've met some of them, and I would like to be in a position to, I'll do what I need to do if it means more than maybe 30 hours that week, and I hope you won't feel like, well, he's going to punch the clock and go home and leave us in the lurch. But I would like to be considered part-time, and I'll submit my hours and to the whomever I need to submit those to, and I'll work with Ms. Griggs and make sure that all of the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed and everything is done appropriately. But that's how I'd like to do it.
I think when you left Wayne, our city manager from here left, Joe Marucci. He
Yes.
took over for you, and
He didn't take over for me. There was a couple of people in between me and him, but I knew Joe years ago. I met him
Nice guy.
a long time ago. I met Joe, and when we were, he was at one point he was in Pleasant Ridge, and then he was up in Clawson, and city managers in Michigan, just like the police chiefs in Michigan and the fire chiefs. We have kind of a little, for lack of better words, club or fraternity, and we see each other at meetings and conventions. I haven't seen Joe in a while, but I've known him for probably 25, 30 years.
thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So, knowing that you want part-time and you have that flexibility, are you looking at an ideal schedule as far as like how many days you would be here?
I'd like to be here probably like 4 days a week, and but if I need to be here on a fifth day, I've been a city manager a fairly long time, and I know the demands of the job. But I guess if you didn't have the strength of your department heads that you have, I think full-time would be required. But because of the people that I've met when I was on the RTAB and when I was working in Southgate and working in Allen Park, I think it can be done part-time. But if I'm the kind of person that if there's an issue, a problem, I'm going to tell you. And I'm not going to try to sweep it under the rug or mask it or cover it up or whatever. And if it necessitates that I'm here more, I will be here more. But if I can do it 4 days a week, I'd like to if I could.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't know if Matt's told you or not, sometimes we have access to him 24/7.
Yeah, that's okay.
Through text or
Yeah, yeah.
email or, so you're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
He will get the phone.
I'm okay with that. Emails, text messages, phone calls. I'll give you my address. It's a team. We're going to need to work together. Although I will be here a relatively short while, I'd like to make a good transition from Matt to me, if you feel that's appropriate, and then from myself to whomever you select to be the manager, and get that person up and running so that they can kind of hit the ground running as opposed to come in cold.
Thank you.
We've got at least 3 major projects going on right now with the roads. We've got a very big meeting coming up with a local local group that owns some land who's talking about doing some business, and we have we're talking about building a court. Give me your thoughts on you're here and you've got these big things going on, and just give me a little thought on that.
Okay, 3 things that you mentioned, and I'm comfortable for these reasons. Number one, in my experience in Wayne, I built with the help of the staff and the council a fire station, a police station, a library, a swimming pool. We bought a movie theater, converted it to a public building. I remodeled the old city hall, turned it into the court. And so I'm comfortable working with architects and construction managers and contractors. I realized from meeting with the 2 judges that presented at the RTAB meeting that that I feel that I could work with them and help them, work with the police chief and others to come up with a good court. I know it covers Rouge as well as Ecorse in Lincoln Park. So I'm excited by those kind of projects where it's, people are getting together and coming up with a good solution. Number two, your engineer is the engineer that I worked with in Southgate, Hennessy. So I know the Hennessy people, I know their location in Southgate, and the gentleman that comes to most of your meetings and I worked with in Southgate. So I have a lot of experience. Michigan Avenue in Wayne is a U.S. highway, so MDOT was involved with us in Wayne. I was the capital projects person in Wayne, so I worked with MDOT, the Wayne County Road Commission, and lots of folks regarding road construction. We did a lot of water line work in Wayne. We did a lot of sanitary sewers in Wayne. We had a combined sewer system in part of town, and we separated it to have storm sewers separate from sanitary sewers. We built a 2.5 million gallon retention detention basin in town. Wayne has not flooded since 1999 because of that basin. And they were called, and at the time, Dingle dollars. We obtained Dingle dollars through the federal government and did all those public improvements. We were certified by the state that we met all the criteria. And then the project I think you might be speaking about has to do with the Lincoln Park Sears property. I actually met that developer when I was in Allen Park. I think it's Grand Sauqua, I think. And so this was now 2011 and 12, and here we are in 19, and it's still kind of in the works. So I'm comfortable working with little developers, big developers, multiple developers. And so I will be, I'm sure the work is hard, but it will, I'll do my best to see those projects through and keep you posted, and whatever decisions need to be made, they'll be brought to you.
All set?
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes, welcome to Lincoln Park.
Thank you.
I don't know if I should call you Mr. Zach, or can I call you John?
How about
or-
John? How about John?
All right, just call me Carlos.
Okay.
Thanks again. I like what Southgate and Allen Park have been doing lately, so I have a little history of Wayne also. They have the Ford Motor Company over there. That's a big tax base, I'm sure. But anyway, my question is, do we need a mover to,
We're not done yet.
because I'm just saying, if we need a mover, I'm all in favor of Mr. Zach on board. That's all I have for Your Honor.
Well, we were going to wait to the interview part of it and then move on to the contract part of it. So if everyone's good with moving on towards that, Councilman Kelsey had some questions reference to that, or do you want to?
Yeah,
Why don't you lead off?
Yeah, if I could. So related to the car allowance part, again, as I said, that when I started all this and talking with John, when I was talking to you, I hadn't even considered that because I was focused just on the wage part. In talking with John, he brought up about the car. And at the time when he brought it up, he asked if there would be a car available. So he didn't ask for a car allowance at the time. He said, will you have a car available? We don't have a lot of cars, just put it out there. And there is one that I know is in the motor pool right now that the police chief might be able to get available for us. I guess there's a power steering issue. And that would work, according to John, as long as, he had access, if he had to go out to a meeting, another community, which he will be doing that, I'll tell you that right now. Probably the second week he's here, he'll have to go. Yeah, he likes to do it, so. So, that is one way to go. If council wants to go that way, it's something I think is acceptable to John. Also, if you wanted just to reimburse mileage, that is something that would also be acceptable. From my perspective, when I addressed it, as I think I said in my email, it's kind of customary that's a lot of the ways that you deal with You know, the vehicle issue with city managers is through a car allowance. So there isn't an issue if council wants to go one of the other different ways. You just have to let us know which way you'd want to go, and we can make it happen.
Through the chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with Councilman. I think it should be a mileage reimbursement rather than a flat fee.
I have absolutely no difficult with that, none, no difficult. Mileage is fine.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other aspect of the contract?
I think, well, just one other thing. I know Councilwoman, excuse me, Ross had brought up about what appears to be some contradictory language in the two sections. In the compensation section, I think it talks about 24 to 30 hours, in the reasonable time spent, it talks about 24 to 30 hours, and then in the compensation, it says not to exceed 35. So the issue I had is, as much as I want to believe I know what will happen, I can't foresee everything is going to happen. So I wanted to give both parties flexibility that if he had to work 34 hours, one week, there wouldn't be contractually any reason that he couldn't do that. Because, we don't want to get in a situation, well, the contract says, now, knowing what I know about John, that won't be an issue. But again, I'm just trying to make it, fair or equitable on both sides, that if it had to be, it could be. But it doesn't necessarily mean it will be. Because again, I think, and John, I think has said it, is that, under the perfect sense of what's going to happen, it's going to be in that 24 to 30 hours. But again, if it needs to be 32 hours, the flexibility is within the contract. That was my only intent in doing that. And I know it seems a little, contradictory, but that's what the intent was, because I wanted to make sure you had flexibility, that you could work longer if you needed to, without getting contractually into any problems.
John, when would you be able to start if we were going? Because this says the
17th.
resolution says October 4th, but it was always my goal that whoever we hire as the interim would have some time to work with the current manager.
I'm ready to start tomorrow, sir.
Yeah, it
as
doesn't
a-
say that. The contract actually starts tomorrow if you pass that.
Right.
Oh, we'll be
Yeah,
leaving.
that's just, it's me.
Okay,
leaving.
that's just him.
That's
leaving.
me leaving.
All right. So
But I'm ready to start tomorrow, but I do have a request. A previously made plan, agreed to by me with my wife, is that I have a plan, a scheduled vacation period, so to speak, starting October the 7th through the 11th. So I would not be able to be here that week, but I can be here up until Matt leaves, and then I'll be gone a week, and then I'll be back, and I'll be all hands on deck as long as needed.
And you'll have his phone, though.
Yes, you can call, you'll be able to call me or email me or text me.
All right. So if there's not,
Just a quick concern too. I just want to make sure, I know Lisa was going to training, but she'll be back, right, by then?
Yeah, mine's the 29th through the
Oh,
4th.
okay.
okay.
Just
Yeah,
a
one more
simple
question. All right, your wife can allow you to answer the phone while you're on vacation?
If I go out in the garage, no, I'm kidding about that. Yes, yeah, she's used to it, 18 years as a manager of Wayne went through lots of cycles, and,
Everything with this city is 24/7, so
yeah,
working with the city for all the years that I did, it's amazing how many hours people don't believe you work.
right. And I want to do a good job for you. That's the other thing. I want to do a good job for you. It's, the analogy is, your mayor's a former police chief, and I don't think your mayor ever left the scene of something because he said, oh, at the end of my shift, I got to go. And the same thing with the fire people and the public works folks. I know City Hall opens and closes, and you don't do building permits at 9:30 at night, but city managers are, you're on duty. And I lived in Wayne while I worked for Southgate, and I lived in Wayne while I worked for Allen Park, and I did some consulting work for Pleasant Ridge, but not as manager. And when I needed to be there, I was there.
It sounds to me like you're the kind of man, when I was a young man, I had a senior gentleman tell me, any job worth doing is worth doing well.
Right.
And that's the way you're sounding to me, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, sir.
Just one quick question, through
Yes,
the-
ma'am.
if I may. It's for Matt. On these hours of work, the total number of hours that he would work, we're talking about a council meeting also, so that would come off of that.
Yep, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yep, any after-hours meetings
Okay.
that would impact that, yeah.
Okay.
All right, then I will move forward with, whereas the current city manager will be leaving employment with the city on October 4, 2019, and whereas the city has need for a suitable qualified person to serve as interim city manager on a temporary basis while the city is actively recruiting to fill the position of city manager. Whereas the city also desires to provide a smooth transition as possible by having the designated interim city manager serve during the remaining time the current city manager is with the city. And whereas the mayor and city council desire to appoint John J. Zeck in the capacity of interim city manager. Whereas the parties desire to set forth the terms of employment in an interim city manager employment agreement, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council appoint John J. Zeck as the interim city manager pursuant to its authorities under the charter of the city of Lincoln Park, and be it further resolved that the mayor and city council approve the interim city manager employment agreement with John J. Zeck, and be it further resolved, the mayor is authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Lincoln Park.
So move.
Support.
Okay, discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilperson Salcido,
Yes.
Parkinson,
Yes.
Breeding,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
and Mayor Carnes.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yep.
So
Welcome
we
aboard.
have. Close this, don't we?
It's the next page.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So move.
Support.
Support.
Clerk, call the roll.
Councilpersons Breeding,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Kelsey,
Yes.
Parkinson,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Salcido,
Yes.
and Mayor Carnes.
Yes.
And you will see that we do not have meetings like Southgate. There will not be any 5-minute meetings.
Oh, no.
I wasn't used to 5-minute meetings, so it was kind of jarring at times.
Unless you can help us get there.
I
Duchesne was this dictator.
HR director.
do Lake Festival do in the middle of winter?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't they go around and inspect every city building? Because Matt doesn't know nothing about this.
Yeah, no.
So Matt, would be basic in charge of. These people don't know what the hell to do anyway.
Yeah.
So they should be writing up what needs to be repaired. Now, if that police station would have proper maintenance, that's always good.
Oh, yeah.
They had all the preventive maintenance that they're taking care of. They wouldn't have leaking pipe. The gun range wouldn't have got so bad. And this and that, they built the court wrong to begin with. I said that at the time they should have connected to the police station.
Yeah.
Then when the two houses behind it were up for quite repos. Oh, for the city should have bought them and just parking lot back in there. Just a series of different things.
Yeah, of errors.
But not at the, well, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. That's why I did that. Well, we're gonna the gun range that could cost an extra $1 million.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Whit.
Yeah, I talked about why didn't you? Why didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but you do it right the first time.
It makes it a lot easier.
That's beautiful.
I know. But, the school is still in flux. So I wouldn't come too hard on them yet. They haven't said you're responsible. They haven't said that.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was up there for,
Just stay out of it right now.
Well, I think, I just don't want them to say, hey, people are saying this and they haven't really said that yet. You know what I mean?
Well, they might volunteer.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, because I'm going to tell them it's an off-site improvement that if you were company ABC coming in here, we would make you do that.
Well, Sears had a problem with the water pressure today. And they built a water tower.
Well, they all did. You remember Federalist in Southgate? The old service merchandise.
Corvettes on their service merchandise.
Yeah.
my obvious answer.
Not one, but I just saw a new one.
I know. Good. I want to let you know that. Yeah.
All going to get together. I think there's a little bit of confusion. Not being in the same.
I've talked to
Okay, yeah.
What's up?
Nothing, I'm old.
Huh?
Nothing, I'm old. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm old too. I just got older yesterday.
I was older today.
Today's your birthday? Yesterday was mine, so I had a digit on.
Oh, do I get a birthday kiss?
No. Give you a birthday kick.
Okay, I'll give you a head check. Happy birthday. Where
Yeah,
are you
but-
at? 60. 7?
6.
66? I'm up to 62.
Well,
Wish we had a clue when we were young.
if I wouldn't have my stroke, I would have done still in pretty good shape. But what are you gonna do?
Oh, there she is.
There she is. You're running around in circles. Hey, John. In the last 2 or 3 years, have you interviewed 39 people for GPS jobs? Have you interviewed anybody at all?
probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. We interviewed a couple, and then maybe a month ago.
Well, I've got my phone with me, but they said, well, somebody passed the test this time, somebody passed. So the ones that passed, there was 39 that passed. So out of those, who passed the drug test and physical test, I don't know. They didn't include that.
Two-step in a year.
They got to get that in the background.
I'm just saying, the way they're doing it, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, okay, you tell me 39 passed. 39 passed, did they pass everything or not? So, I mean, did you get to interview that, you know? It's a crock, so.
That's coming up tonight, isn't it?
Yes. Because you work.
Oh, how was Nate? Nate,
Let's take a break. I won't
is he?
Yeah, I just
No shit.
never got along with her, and she knew it.
Still bad.
Yeah, and she knew it, and whatever, and so I was there. Anytime she needed something or wanted something, I took care of her. That one. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
We'll do coffee soon.
Oh, well,
What hours do you work?
I tried.
Oh, 6 to 5. 6 a.m. to 5.
Everybody told me he was a pretty good guy. And I don't know.
So it'll have to be,
Before 6. 5 o'clock. No.
there's nothing open.
Well, it's better than nothing.
Maybe we'll have to be.
We got Mark Whitting. Mark Judge.
It's a mess there. Yeah, he's not a. And John was there when we came in for.
No,
Giles.
I mean, Mark comes in, just fills in.
She helps 33 hours overtime. I was gonna tell John, if he's having to come in at night, he shouldn't come in to work during the day.
There's nobody there to run the department, day or night.
Somebody's still gotta put together the work schedules, what has to be done, and you still have to babysit.
That's what you make those leaders do during the day.
Yet they're newbies, they don't even know what this is. That's how green they are.
It's ridiculous. Well, I was pleased to say that he's gonna do the interviews on Wednesday.
Yeah, but between interviews,
Drug test.
background, drug test, bring them on board. I've got some in place that are green that we're gonna interview. But I don't remember, it's either 3 or 4 outsiders. I look at their industry.
Oh. Yeah, you don't have that.
No, because just using these newbies, I'm still gonna have to put in a lot of extra time just to make sure, train them and make sure that everything happens as it should.
And then when they get trained here,